The sound of the key turning in the lock used to stir warmth in my chest, a familiar note. That meant she was home, that we were whole. But tonight, that sound rang hollow, echoing through rooms thick with silence and something heavier. Knowing it was a Thursday evening, and like clockwork, Clara returned from what she called her girls' night out. Only this time, she swept into the house like a vision from a stranger's dream, wearing a bold, crimson dress that clung to her curves and screamed for attention. It was loud, sensual, and completely out of character. She usually preferred muted tones, cool grays, soft blues, understated elegance. But tonight, she walked in draped in the color of seduction and sin. She paused in the hallway, tilting her body slightly, letting the overhead light dance along the new shimmer of jewelry on her wrists. I sat in the living room, pretending to read, my eyes hidden behind the pages, but fully aware of every detail. The faint smirk on her lips, the way the fabric hugged her body like a lover. It was all a performance. I'd noticed the changes, how could I not? The late nights, the way she turned her back to take whispered calls behind the locked bathroom door, her glazed-over expression when I tried to tell her about my day. She wasn't just slipping away, she was already gone. And that dress, that scarlet thing, wasn't for her friends. It was proof. Proof splashed in red, bold and unapologetic. A crimson flag waved in my face. I forced myself to return to the book in my hands, eyes following lines I couldn't process. For weeks, I had been the silent observer, collecting facts while she spun lies. I had her phone records. I knew the errands that took too long. I had followed Hurt Weiss to the upscale hotel downtown, where she met him, Marcus, a slick real estate developer with thinning hair and a face like a cartoon villain. Arrogant, careless, laughable, really. But it wasn't funny. It was betrayal. So I waited, patient and cold, like a coiled spring waiting for the right pressure to release. She breezed into the living room, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume, rich, floral. Not the one I'd bought her. She leaned down to kiss me, her lips cool and stiff. A mask, not affection. Double quotes. Hey, honey, she purred. Hey, I said back, keeping my voice neutral. My eyes never left the page. This was the beginning of the end, and she didn't even realize it. I excused myself to the bathroom, which I'm sure she assumed was part of the routine. Inside, my heart pounded, but my hands were steady. The mirror gleamed, reflecting a man I barely recognized. But in seconds, it wouldn't be so pristine. Right above where she would see her reflection, I wrote a single sentence in non-permanent marker. I know about Marcus. The marker slipped from my fingers, hitting the tiled floor with a soft, final thud. I stepped back, studying the words, the simplicity of them, and the weight they carried. Then I left the bathroom, sat back on the edge of the sofa, and pretended to care about a game. On TV, she gave me a confused glance and headed toward the bathroom. Then it happened. Her gasp shattered the stillness, a sharp, jagged sound that twisted something deep inside me from the corner of my eye. I saw her face drain of color. She stood frozen, eyes locked on the mirror as though the words might reach out and strangle her. Her breath trembled, shallow and fast. She came back into the room slowly, like someone walking through wreckage. What is this? She asked, voice shaking. I looked up lazily, feigning ignorance. What does it look like? Just writing on the mirror, isn't it? You're being ridiculous, she snapped. But her voice lacked conviction. She was cracking. Who is Marcus? She said sharply, desperation creeping into her tone. I met her eyes and replied flatly. Why don't you ask him? Unless he's still busy admiring the pavement I introduced him to. Her breath caught. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I stood, slowly, watching her recoil as if my presence were a blow. I caught him before you arrived at the hotel. Hotel lobby, 30 minutes before your rendezvous. We had a chat. Well, I talked. He bled. Let's say your little secret lover now understands what it feels like to mess with the wrong man. Her face turned ghostly. You can't do this, she whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. Oh, but I can. And I did. I took out my phone. With a few taps, I showed her the photos and videos I'd taken. Her and Marcus, laughing, touching, her eyes glowing under hotel bar lights, hand in his, like I'd never existed. She looked stunned, mouth trembling. I didn't stop there. I played back a recording of a conversation she'd had with him. A laugh that used to belong to me, now ridiculing me, mocking my old car, my long hours. The man who built her life brick by brick. She slapped her hands over her ears. I tossed a manila envelope on the coffee table. It landed with a flat, heavy sound. "Those are divorce papers," I said coolly. "Already spoke to my lawyer. You can move out by the weekend." Her eyes darted from me to the envelope. Her shoulders began to quake with sobs. "Please," she whimpered. "Please, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Please, I love you." I said nothing. Silence was my verdict. I turned and walked down the hallway to the guest room. Shutting the door behind me, her cries reached me like a muffled storm butt. I no longer lived in the weather of her chaos. She had the weekend. That was more than she deserved. The next few days passed in a blur of box tape, silence, and broken glances. She moved like a ghost, a sad echo of the woman she used to be. That red dress, the symbol of her affair, was now just a crumpled heap. In the corner of our bedroom, forgotten and filthy, she tried to touch me once or twice, tried to cry on my shoulder. I moved away each time, stone-faced and still. I had burned every last bridge in my heart that once led to her. Sunday evening came, and with it, her final act. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, as she loaded the last of her things into the back of a U-Haul. She paused before closing the truck door, her face a smeared ruin of mascara and regret. The confident woman who once strutted into my home like she owned it was gone. In her place stood a mess of tears and disbelief. I said nothing. I just watched. She drove away slowly, vanishing down the street with everything she brought into my life: betrayal, lies, and a love that had rotted from the inside. When the sound of the engine faded, I stepped back into the house. The silence inside was deep, but for the first time in a long while, it didn't hurt. I walked into the bathroom. The words I'd written were still there, faint but visible. "I know about Marcus." I smiled. This was my home again, clean, empty, mine. There was still pain, of course. Wounds like that don't vanish overnight. But I could breathe again. I could move forward. I was free from her deception, from the web she spun around us, from the illusion of something that had died long ago. The house was quiet now, yes, but that silence was sacred. It was the beginning of something new. My slate was clean. My heart would heal. And the future was mine.